Alex Answer here, coming to you on December 26th, 2015. So one of my goals is to continue these podcasts in a calmer tone and talk about the deeper issues without all the anger, because we're in a day and age where there are many targeted individuals that are being affected by this propaganda. And they're allowing themselves to become so angry that they don't even see the truth. Now, we're going to talk about getting beyond the illusions of separation. And there are people that watch this channel. For example, my number one demographic happens to be white people in America, in Western countries, because that's where I live. But there are more people that are finding this channel and their racial background. It is becoming more diverse because of the nature of the conversation. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age where most of the people that are out there in the alternative media and the mainstream media are stuck in these boxes. These racial, these nationalistic, and these political boxes. And their limited perspectives on reality, as well as the falsehoods that they say, have infected their followers. And so there's something that I want to make very clear in this video. First of all, today on Facebook, a woman was posting pictures of naked white women on crosses. And this picture was from many decades ago or years back. And she's screaming, "The Islamists did it! The Islamists did it!" And others are going off on tangents based on false or misleading reports. And so what we're going to talk about is how we have seen some people go from conspiracy research or supposedly being awake or thinking for themselves, and they're being baited, they're being led, they're being misdirected into a dangerous box of white supremacy that is only there to hurt us later on and trap us into this illusion of separation so we don't even know who we really are beyond our genetics, beyond our name. And it's taking some of you. Not all, some. And the fact of the matter is, I have to say that. Because if I don't say that, people will come out swinging with their Spartan 300 Viking sword of offensive action. And the fact of the matter is, you don't have to be defensive if this does not apply to you. You know, when I see those posts, I send those people a message and I let them know that they're playing a role in the coming race war, when even non-Muslims could even be targeted and put into a camp. And that doesn't necessarily mean just all non-whites. There's many Muslim men that look very pale skin, but then there's many white men with very thick beards that an idiot could confuse for this person being a Bin Laden type. Now, why there's some sort of a weird covert war on beards, I don't know. But you can let me know what you think. These people I don't argue with. These people I don't go back and forth with. If I feel like sending them a message to tell them how much they've disgusted me before I block them, I do that. And then our connection is over. Because if they don't see something wrong with that now, what is something that I'm going to do to help them see the light? But what I will do is let them know that they are wrong. And some of these people know me, some of these people respect me, and I will let them know I will have nothing to do with anyone like that. Because people that are putting out that type of disinformation are playing their part in this racial conflict. You know, and I also noticed that a specific demographic of white people are affected the most when they're buying the propaganda. They'll buy it before the Hispanics. They'll buy it before the blacks. I'm sorry to tell you. They'll buy it before the Polish. But it's what they might consider themselves to be the pure, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryans. And a lot of older and younger females that are in that box that don't think for themselves are easily led into being afraid and being controlled by this society and that which controls this society. Not all, some. Based on the posts that I've seen, they are responding to fear coming from the internet, not something happening in their lives or in their neighborhoods. Now, we do come loaded with ancestral programming to mate, to kill, to fight or flight, and more. You know, that hunter-gatherer aspect of ourselves, that's not always healthy, because I can see the hunter-gatherer consume to today's consumerism, to buy. And so we have hunter-gatherers in the modern world, but they're hunting and gathering at the supermarket, at the shopping malls, at these places where they can buy these plastic foreign goods made in slave factories. And so there are things about us that are human that can also be controlled. When you add in today's propaganda, staged events, and controlled ISIS terror cells, that's activating that fight or flight in those readers of those reports, mainstream media, alternative media, and it activates the primitive mammalian war gene. You combine that with the solar flares, you see the links between solar flares, solar maximum, and the cycles of war and peace. See my past research for more information on that. It'll blow your mind. Take a look at that information and internalize it. Understand it. Know why 9/11 took place when there were solar flares taking place. And other false flags, as well as earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. There's a biological response to the sun. And the real dark occult above this whole matrix of sorts, and I don't mean the creator, I mean the control structure. They know how to toy with us. And they know how to spring propaganda on us that surprises us yet takes us by storm. And many of your brothers and sisters right now are being taken by storm. So it seems that a fraction of those, not all, but a fraction of those with a certain genetics that truly believe that they're supreme in a DNA sense, they're the most concerned about a world with less full-blooded Aryans. And I call bullshit on this idea of white genocide. As it has been portrayed, there is racism, there is classism, there are things that are happening that are not right. There is social unrest, not just civil unrest. There are problems within our society. But becoming race baiters and thinking that it's only about one group or a certain group of immigrants. Oh, it's the whites, it's the Mexicans, it's the immigrants, it's the Muslims. And again, you see a lot of Muslims boxed into one category, Middle Eastern immigrants. And this is one of the stupidest things that people can do, but they're doing it because they have been led to look at life in this way. But for those of you that have seen my experiences in Portland, where we've seen an influx of the hip whites from San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle, and New York, and other places in the world, including Israel, what you have in Portland is an ongoing case then of soft brown genocide, where those outside the preferred tribal structure that a lot of people gravitate towards, the people pushed out of society, pushed out of jobs, losing their jobs, passed up for promotions and their homes because they are not in the tribe. So leave the racism and the false claims that seeing the propaganda in others as racist, because that's a special kind of stupid. However, its popularity and use among this targeted individual class or demographic has reached a viral level. And notice a lot of these people talk about, feeling gang stalked or feeling that the government's spying on them. And they're on Facebook a lot, where Facebook can manipulate their news feed and play on their emotions. They already knew that. So you have people that have become somewhat aware that there are deceptions, only to continue looking at the monitor, expecting the monitor to shut off and, overt censorship. And instead of overt censorship, they just flood the internet with disinformation and pay off people in the alternative media that they have trusted for years to take a fraction of white America, not all. I think you're with me now. But I think it's important that some people can't even understand that. They can't even accept criticism. And I see white people bashing white people in ways that I don't think that they should. So in a way, white people attack white people all the time, and a lot of white people don't like it. Rightfully so, because they see how ridiculous it is and self-hating. And we are a self-hating culture. Educate yourself on that one, because if we weren't, society would be manifesting itself in a different way. How we treat each other, how we look at each other, how we relate to each other. Collectively speaking, we are not a society that loves itself. And so we're seeing the manifestation of that. But I also see unhealthy denial on the part of those that would identify to be white. That identify with this is their group versus the others, or the others are coming after their group. As if that is like a true identity, because of this perception of genetics and the way that we look. It's like the ultimate practical joke on the part of the real creator on the human species. While all this disinformation is out there, all this line is from the line of Cain and Mormon thought. That's very polluted. But has that type of thinking infected white culture, even those that aren't Mormon, even those that aren't religious, even those that aren't on the right? Yes, it's affect the left and women on the left that think that they are not, in this system or in this paradigm of thinking, or easily propagandized to the point where they're afraid and they're willing to believe the bullshit because of what's on their Facebook news feed. They don't know they're a targeted individual in this case. They may think that they are in another case. They may think that there's manipulation in another case. Unfortunately, I have to tell you right now, the situation is dangerous for many people in America and around the world, because the propaganda is working on a demographic of America that has been looking at real deceptions for some time. This is the biggest deception that I've ever seen since I was born in this lifetime. I'm 35. It's December 26th, 2015. I'll be 36 soon. And that's why this podcast needs to happen. We hear all this stuff about the Muslims raping the white women, the Muslims taking the white women. It's the end of the world. The Mexicans are taking the white women. Everything, oh my God, it's the Middle Ages. But white people rape white people all the time, and they like to simulate it and film it and watch it and put it on the internet. Muslims are not involved in the American European hardcore gangbang porno movement, but white people are. Of course, they will try to blame it on the Jews. Oh no, it's the Jews, they've infiltrated. You can go ahead and blame other people all you want for propaganda. It's the part of the individual to not partake in that individual programming, that collective programming, to think for themselves as an individual, to respect themselves, to respect men, to respect women. To not let themselves turn into a whore. White people are doing those things in this country. Simulating rape, filming it, and making it available for small children to watch. Is that happening in the Islamic world? Are there millions of female Islamic fans of James Dean, the porno star, who was in the news recently, whether or not he's guilty or not? Several porn actresses have accused him of rape. And we're also such a smut-filled culture that will be news. And then we find out about all his fans that think that they're feminists, that like to see women desecrated on camera here in this country, and perhaps, I don't know, all the different countries, Western countries, that are involved with that. But violent pornography is a global business. And the reason we brought this topic up is because all you're hearing about is this non-existent Islamic invasion. It doesn't mean that there haven't been some rapes from immigrants. It's, does this represent the whole? Or are they taking the few cases that do exist and saying this is what they're all doing, and then saying that there's no families, which there are? That's been debunked. So they no longer say it's all men, because those were fake reports to get you to think, some of you, that Obama no, he's not a servant of the New World Order. He's a Muslim who's going to bring in the Muslims to rape and pillage because Obama hates white people. Yeah, that's why the establishment put Obama in power. You've got everything figured out. Oh, you're fully awake that Obama did this himself, giving the man more credit than he deserves. Okay, so he's a brilliant mastermind, you're saying, and an idiot. And you can say that with a straight face. Oh no, he was put in by the powers that be to make this country Islamic. For what? The powers that be to say, let's push back and have this war? And then you're going to tell me that Trump is not with the powers that be. That the powers that be have not allowed Alex Jones to do what he's doing for a reason, because he's playing a role in this. He's playing a role in this. Meanwhile, Alex Jones says that police went after a guy and got shot trying to stop a guy from killing Alex Jones, making wild claims he cannot back up, as if he's preparing for some sort of Alex Jones deception, disappearance act. This is the same guy screaming Allah Akbar, pretending to be some sort of Islamic immigrant who wants to rape women. I want you to think about the mindset of the white woman that will watch Alex Jones and think this is normal. I want you to really understand and internalize how her ancestral programming has activated within her, and the inner reptilian, that, the reptilian mind within us is activated in fight or flight, to be afraid and to endorse those violent systems, the military industrial complex, and all those things that she supposedly was against, now for, because they've been told to be afraid of being raped by them. But in the world of violent pornography, where you have apparently more women getting into these things, not only as actors in a collapsing economy, and prostitution ideology becoming more embedded within our society, and human trafficking becoming a bigger issue, and you even read reports about white women that are involved in human trafficking. If you've ever lived in Portland and really paid close attention to the news, and then put your head in the sand and say that, we're ascended, let's not look at the negativity, but actually look at what's happening to society. Women in this country traffic women for sex with older men for money all the time. And that's why they'll say to me, Alex Ansari's always been this way. That's why you won't see them protesting en masse. Those reports of Western troops, European troops, NATO troops, US troops raping Islamic women. And it's been happening for years. And they're trafficked. And then as soon as Baghdad was taken over, porno videotapes were available in the streets, according to reports. And I was reading it, people were like, isn't this freedom? Isn't this feminism? And so many white women in this society think that they're free. And they don't understand how embedded they still are with the beast system. And there's a reason why they have the woman and the beast, or the bull, on the coins in the EU. And we are talking about the mythos of Europa. The legend of Europa is that Europe, the continent, came to be when a bull grabbed a woman and dragged that woman out into the sea, and that bull raped that woman, and Europe was brought to life. This is Greek mythology. The woman being raped and put into the system is the meme of Europe. Okay, so we have white women being willing to play those roles in those movies simulating hell on earth. And also horror films and Freddy Krueger and all these things because of the money associated with it and our enslavement to money. And they put God on the money, and we're taught to worship money. So in this society, people do prostitute their morals, their bodies, their value systems. They become different people. They suppress who they are, and they let others abuse them. Many men let others abuse them in the workplace. When they become middle managers, they learn to abuse and be abused, to fire and be fired. They learned over time in the so-called evolution of man, which is really a regression, to serve that system and to make that money in order to attract a woman in this society that has been programmed to only look at a man's value based on the amount of money that he has already made. And not even the amount of money that man is capable of making. It's how much he's played into the system already to earn and deserve her body and her sexuality. And hence, this pornographic culture and this society of money dictating so much, it's intertwined. And so, how is this not in the conversation about our society? How is this not on the table? We hear this false narrative about the false, violent, rapist Islamic invasion that has reached epidemic levels, according to false reports put out by Paul Joseph Watson and Red Ice Creations and others. But what about America's deep, kinky world? People don't want to go there. And the reason they don't want to go there is because they don't want to be judged for the things that they've done or allowed to be done to them. They don't want to look at themselves. They don't want to look at, men in their lives. They want to blame men and women from other countries so they don't have to look in the mirror. And so, while I will also see white people demonizing other white people, when a less than fully pale white person speaks about white racism, people freak out on the non-fully pale, half-white person, calling them the racist, which is insanity on human asylum growth hormone. They also do strange things like put words in the mouth of the critic, saying that all whites were slandered. Someone did this on a video recently where I showed this racist white woman calling two Brazilians terrorists, and that individual associated that video with me saying that all white people were terrorists. He literally, as if he had some sort of a cognitive impairment, read the title wrong and interpreted the whole message wrong. And see, women do a lot of this when they hear criticism of unconscious female behavior. When you talk about the gold digging, when you talk about the energy vampirism, when you talk about the narcissism, when you talk about the prostitution ideology that has taken most of our society by storm, all of a sudden they come rushing to the defense of the person engaging in the actions because they engage in those actions themselves. Likewise, only racists and people that see themselves as genetically superior to the person that is not fully Anglo to them, Anglo or white, they will become violently upset as if their ancestral programming was activated. Meanwhile, others get it. Others that may identify to be white get it because their consciousness has evolved beyond that automatic fight or flight, adrenaline pumping, just reacting to the propaganda and picking up the Spartan sword. So it's not racist for me to point out the racism in others, the fear in others, and to highlight how a demographic of white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed America is behaving like they're targeted individuals. And I was just reading another article about electronic warfare and some of the weapons that China has that they're attaching to their jets. And I've always thought that as World War III approached, that America would be attacked with electronic weapons to send us into a civil war, social unrest, and internal strife. And I said this years ago, and I believe that's exactly what we're seeing right now. And it's also important to note that there are non-whites, blacks and Hispanics, that are on board the racist agenda because they want to be accepted by mainstream white America. So they'll bobble their heads and agree they'll join the military, and many will don the uniforms of the system. Many of them will become police. They are somebody now in their mind, something to write home about. A brown man's success in a white woman in a white man's world. Acceptance. Now, older women that have been traumatized by the smart meters, by the chemtrails, by their own media, by government, by bad husbands and boyfriends, by broken families, by poverty, they seem affected the most because they appear to lack real love in their life. They appear to lack genuine intuition, an understanding of the New World Order, discernment to know fake news on Facebook versus real news. They often lack physical intimacy. And sometimes there are substance abuse issues involving chain smoking, chronic marijuana addiction, alcoholism, consumerism, Facebook addiction, and pill popping. And all this is more has troubled today's older and younger American woman. Not to mention what birth control addiction, taking that stuff long term, does to the cognitive process. Now I've talked about my father enough. My mom's side is fully Aryan, Germanic, and blonde-haired, blue-eyed. And you are damaged upstairs if you think my mother did not get shit for bringing in a half Afghani into the earth. And you are damaged if you don't know that. Damaged, blunted, regressed, and held back. And you're also regressed if you think I'm speaking about this just because of myself. This is about having compassion now for future generations. Babies that have yet to be born, as well as babies that have already been born, as well as those that have been murdered in foreign lands because truly of where they were from. Because that's what you have when you have 9 out of 10 civilians dead. They're being killed because they're Afghani. They're being killed for some reason because they're Iraqi. There's something about that bloodline, because this is not about race. There's something about that bloodline and the bloodline of the Syrians that the real ruling establishment above all these systems that people think controls things, Bilderberg, Bohemian Grove, the Vatican and Israel, the Jews, all bullshit to take us away from seeing how we have been set against each other. And you look at the world they're creating for the Jews in Israel. They're not creating a safe world for the Jews, so they're not really doing this for Jews. Israel is just another co-opted police state, racist empire waging war on Gaza that is just one spoke on a much larger wheel. So I have every right to talk about how a demographic of white America is under mind control and has been groomed to buy into racial supremacy and to see everything wrong with someone like me. Not that you think that, but when they talk about white genocide in Europe, from the Red Ice Creations perspective, from the Alex Jones perspective, from the Paul Joseph Watson perspective, from the Michael Desarian perspective, from the Donald Trump perspective, and more, when you get to the root of it, it's white supremacy, it's mixed babies. It's the fear, and not just Middle Eastern blood, Hispanic blood. They're afraid that they're being contaminated. It says in the Bible about a rich man not being able to take his riches into heaven. And yet, we're only going to live once. On average, 80 years. Maybe it'll be more later, maybe it'll be less. We don't know yet. And it's going to be different in different parts of the planet as they depopulate certain areas where they want to get rid of the undesirables. But they have told white America that they are the undesirables and that the brownies are coming, and they have done that so they can continue their extermination of foreign lands. Why the mixed baby frightens the New World Order and what really controls this planet is beyond me. But I know that I have a spirit, and I know the brain that is within me. I know all the media that I've created for 10 years. I know all the energy that I have to speak with you, regardless of the fact that many of you hate me, yet many of you appreciate me. Sometimes I wonder if my actual genetic blend in it partially has something to do with my energy levels. I also see the beauty in all racial backgrounds, but I don't see myself as inferior or superior. I see myself as capable, and others as capable but choosing to not answer the call and pick up the microphone and speak against this global racist agenda and against the illusions of separation. I'm white, I'm black, I'm Hispanic, I'm this. That's the craziest world you can live in. And it's probably because of the hardships that I've experienced and seen the racism in every side, from Afghani to white to black. I've seen it all, that I reject all racial supremacy and I identify with the human experience, whereas others say they identify with the human experience only to show that they've been bullshitting the whole time, or to show that when they are less than spiritually fit and they allow their minds to be contaminated by mind control and propaganda and fake news, they can be redirected to a defensive posture with their fists up, swinging away at ghosts and demons that don't even exist except within their own consciousness. So regardless, I'm offended by pure white blood white. I'm reading from some notes I wrote. Pure white supremacy, bloodline ideology, pure blood white supremacy. It is offensive to me in every single form. You can't take your riches to heaven. These people are not going to be on the planet forever. So why are they obsessed with what stats are saying about America in 2040 or 2045? Only in that which controls this system would be concerned with putting out such a narrative that can strike fear and terror into the hearts and minds of millions to billions of human beings. The billions referencing the Muslims. When you have people being attacked, it can put them in a defensive posture, and a fraction of them may retaliate. But we have seen since 9/11 no genuine acts of terror in this country since that time. 9/11 itself, questionable, but since 9/11, if all of these Muslims were intending to force Sharia law upon the Christians, where has the violence been following 9/11? Why now, as the U.S. puts out their blueprints to go into all these other countries? And in this schizophrenic culture someone can be a 9/11 truther and hate all Muslims. They can see the U.S. war blueprint and still buy the Alex Jones narrative, because now things have become very blurry and they're going after your soul. They want you to act on that defensive posture. We are now seeing a rise in stories of mosques being torched, Muslims being attacked in Canada, and a Donald Trump supporter from Richmond, California, posting on social media a bomb saying he had intentions to take out a mosque. In a day and age where women leaving mosques are being attacked. Not only did I call it, no one realizes that I've called it. And that other night where you guys thought I was losing my mind, telling people to prepare themselves, was the night a mosque was burned in Houston, Texas. I had no idea that was taking place. I was responding to something in the air. But of course that message, like many other messages of mine, have gone unnoticed and laughed at. Like this show is a show, or this podcast is just my imagination. So I'm offended by the pure-blood white supremacy ideology, and as a half European line, and I have some Welsh in me at least, as well as Austrian. My grandmother's line on my mother's side is a Lewis, by the way, in addition to the Nagel line. I can say whatever I want about how a segment of white America has become the subject of psychic attack, in addition to other groups being put under psychological warfare and baited into responding to the attacks on them and their countries. Oh yeah, and thanks to my Jewish friend for a place to park. And thanks to my Mexican friend for helping me rebuild my websites. I'm Alex Ansary signing off for December 26th, 2015.